Good afternoon, everybody. I am Rich Sutter, and we are in the zone. I'm here with Pete Coles, and we are post draft and excited to be here today because there's just so much information flowing right now in the NBA circles, a whole lot going on. We are here ready to do our post draft grading system. We are here today to give you a look at the teams we think that did very, very well in the draft and have a potential to help themselves in the future, and we also have some people we think that didn't do so well. And if we get into a little bit, there's phrases in our business, and especially at draft time, people will say, or in the recruiting forum, people will often say, "Oh my God, let's use it. Let's use a specific example because I've used this on our social media, and so we'll start with it."
Okay.
I have said on social media that Isaiah Wong from the University of Miami at number 55 is a steal. For me, an absolute steal. Okay? Now, in the other venues, there's some shoplifting going on.
Okay.
There's some Grand Theft Auto here. And so we want to just go through it, but we wanted to delineate, okay? When we say somebody's a steal, man, we think this is a really good pick at the really good spot. That's the subjective piece of this. This draft, the player drafted in this scenario, what do they make for their team? What impact do they make for their team? And that's the subjectivity of it. What did they need? Who did they have? And that's kind of the gaps we're going to fill in today. What does the existing roster look like? Maybe this was in the thought process of all of those general managers as they went through, as we're sitting there saying, I wonder why they took him at that pick in that spot. And then you're going to say, look at their roster. It fits well. I see what they're doing. It might work, it might not work, but it fits well. But before we get into all of that, Pete, we got to go to Feed 'em Fish right away. And this is a proud moment on the Feed 'em Fish segment. Throughout the course of our time here together, I think we've had 13 or 14 shows together.
Yep.
It's been one of the absolute joys of my life doing this. This has been really, really cool for me. I've really, really enjoyed it. But the one thing I didn't want to do was to get too much into myself, and what I do and how we do it. But it's going to be a little bit difficult to not talk about myself a little bit without going into this next Feed 'em Fish section.
Okay.
All right. So I am the men's basketball coach at Westfield State. I've been the men's basketball coach there for 25 years. I've been a Division I assistant coach. I've been a high school coach on the high school level on one of the best teams in New York City, Archbishop Malloy. So I've had a number of different stops, a number of different places, but Westfield State seems to be the place where I found my home. I've been able to accumulate 350 wins there. I really enjoy some of the people that I work with there and some of the player relationships that I continue to this day. We've spoken about Chris Caputo at George Washington. Phil Connors is a head coach in Massachusetts as well. But this was a kind of a proud moment for our basketball program, so I wanted to talk about it.
Okay.
Throughout the 25 years there at Westfield State, to be inducted into our Hall of Fame, you have to have a 10-year wait period from your graduation date. And so that slowed down a few of our guys from getting into this process. But now I got news from our athletic director that David Janig, one of my recruits from back in the day, I believe the class of 2013, is going to be our first inductee into the Hall of Fame. His nickname is Jigs. He was probably one of my best recruits here at Westfield State. I love the young man. His family is tremendous. I know Mark Janig is in the living room right now with a towel above his head, and he's waving it just like he did at Bridgewater State when we went on to play in the championship game at Salem. So I just wanted to take this moment. It is a proud moment for our program, so I did want to mention it. I don't like to speak too much about what I actually do because I think sometimes that might cloud what I'm saying. I like people to be able to criticize me, and I like people to be critical of my thoughts as well, and that way we can create some discussion. If I come out this as I'm some kind of career expert, I think people sometimes are a little bit reticent or reluctant to kind of challenge that, and I like the challenge. So I wanted to just talk about that a little bit at the beginning today. Congratulations, David. You are a joy to coach and an absolute great player in our program. brought us to a lot of W's. I got 350. You got a bunch too. And so I wanted to say thank you to the Janik family for the opportunity to coach your son. It was an absolute joy. And maybe on down the line when Jigs gets inducted into the Hall of Fame, maybe later in October when he goes in, I'll have a better story for you about Dave. We're going to keep those on reservation right now. But for
Why don't we
right
have
now,
a rare guest segment and have him in?
we could definitely do that. We could definitely do that. And I want to grow our guest segment here. So I'm going to put out a little shout to Coach Martin up at UMass. We'd love to have you. Coach Caputo at GW, I think we can get that done. But we'd have to do that possibly via the...
We could do it on Zoom.
On the Zoom.
Yep.
Yeah, we could do that. So I think that would be awesome. But we're going to start to, I think, do that in the summer because that might help us fill up some of our blocks as well.
Yeah,
but
sure.
There's absolutely no need to fill blocks today, Pete.
No.
We're coming out of the blocks. We're running out of the blocks. I, again, said to you, we started out with some cards that I had some very basic stuff on. And I think I have morphed into the great Bob Plass. I'm saying that humbly because he is the great master of Westfield, this master of ceremonies of Westfield. But I do have a ton of information here that we've gotten through. I said to my wife, this is the first time on my show that I didn't have to do any work on Thursday morning in order to prepare. Usually on Thursday morning, I'm running around with my hair on fire, trying to figure this out, trying to line it up, trying to get it set. And this week, it just fell really into place. So I hope everybody rides along with us on this one because this is going to be really good. This is post-draft. All right, so what we did was we took the entire draft and we went through it, 1 through 58 picks. We assigned a grade to each person in the draft and to the team that was drafting it. What we did after that was we looked at the composite of what the teams drafted in total, and then we assigned a grade to that as well. So we have individual and we have team grades to hand out today. I think the draft was always exciting. It's so great to see that. I do want to give the NBA a little bit of a knock here because there is gambling on these picks that you can gamble who's on the #1 pick. You can gamble. You can gamble
as prop
on,
bets.
Right now in this country, you can gamble on which cube of sugar a fly is going to land on. So they're creating lines on just about everything. And so that's a line out of Guys and Dolls also.
Gotcha.
But they're creating a line on everything now. And so what you're having is people are able to bet on the draft. When you see young men dressed up in suits, beautiful suits, I'll say Grady Dick, for an example, in the 13th spot, drafted by the Raptors, comes out in Raptor red. He's completely dressed in a red suit, the same as the team colors. If you look back through Victor Wembanyama and some of the other players that came up there, they were all dressed in their team colors. So if it's scripted and you know which players are being drafted, you really shouldn't have gambling on that. And if you don't know, because what happened was somebody jumps into this and says, some social media guy jumps up and says, oh, I got information that says the Hornets are thinking about taking Scoot at #2. Now, the Hornets were very, very solid the entire time. They said on Brandon Miller #2. But somebody, for the purpose of trying to stir the pot,
move the line.
Move the line.
Yeah,
stir
that moves the
pot.
line. Yeah.
Okay, now we have, you know, a kind of an outside of a line movement action here, and I just don't think that's healthy. And again, if you want to look less scripted NBA, you might want to have your players not show up in the colors of the team that they draft when they look so surprised that they were drafted by that team. Okay, so let's go on. All right, let's move it. Let's move the needle today, Pete. We're going to fly and we're going to roll. I do want to say that I thought the draft was pretty good as far as what was in it. And what are the grades that we assigned also goes into, okay, Isaiah Wong at 55. You just got a really good NBA player at 55 in the second round. That's an A, okay? You took Brandon Miller in the 2 spot, okay? I'm not a big Brandon Miller in the 2 spot fan, and so that's a D. Now, everybody might say, oh, my God, Brandon Miller, he was the #2 pick. How can you give that a D? I think because Scoot Henderson was the better pick here and they messed up. Go back historically to when they had one of what people consider one of the best drafts of all time. The #1 draft pick out of the University of Houston was Akeem Olajuwon. Nobody's going to argue with that being a great #1 pick. But the #2 pick at that time was a gentleman by the name of Sam Bowie, who rarely played in the NBA. He was 7'4", ton of injuries, ton of foot injuries all through his career, and never materialized into a great NBA player. Now, who was taken third that year, Pete?
I have no idea.
Michael Jordan.
Wow.
So this is what I think might have happened here a little bit with the Miller thing. I think they got hyped. I think they liked his workouts. I get it, but Scoot Henderson, to me, was by far a better number 2 there, based upon what I've seen of him, his abilities, and just the raw ability to control a basketball floor. I mean, he can dunk. His speed is incredible. I liken him to John Morant. I liken him to Anthony Edwards. And if he has the same work ethic as those 2 players, I think he's going to do just great.
Was it also helpful that he came out of the G League too, where that would give him a little bit more time on the floor against better competition?
We're going to find out about that, because I just haven't seen enough G League games to know who they're playing against. I'm sure there's good competition there. I'm sure it really is really good, but there's not a ton of that action where you can say, yep, look at these guys who were in the G League who now came out and they're the best players in the NBA hands down. You really don't have that. Now the G League is fairly new, so I think it might take a little bit of time to carefully metric that impact. But right now, I'd like to see guys go to the NCAA, and I don't think the NCAA should hold them for 1 year. If they want to go straight out to the pros, that's on the general managers and everybody else to do their homework and do a good job. I think it's restraint of trade when you keep people from not plying their trade as soon as they can. It's certainly going to cost people millions of dollars when you force them to go to college. Unfortunately, it is a bit of a proving ground, but I think that's not necessarily in line with some of the ways our laws work, and I think they have these young men under some different constraints that I think are not necessarily in compliance with law, and so that's something I think that's always kind of bugged me a little bit. But let's get through the draft. All right, we're going to assign the grades, we're going to move through them, and then we're going to go and say, okay, they have this, that, and the other thing. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go through the individual grades. I'm then going to go through the team grades, and then I'm going to go through who is on the existing roster and how does that fit. Let's use an example of the Boston Celtics. They traded Marcus Smart, and the reason I think that was a good trade for the Celtics is because Marcus Smart does not fit in as a point guard in the NBA, in my opinion. Okay, he's a good player, great defender, solid off-the-ball player. He's an off-guard by definition, but they've converted him to a point guard out of necessity this year. It worked very, very well for them this year, except when they got into tough situations where they really, really needed to have the ball in the right hands, and Tatum and Brown didn't get that ball at that time. So to trade him for Porzingis, I think was a great trade, because if you moved Jaylen Brown and Tatum into their normal positions, okay, and then you add a Porzingis out there. If you ask Marcus Smart to compete with those 3 players at the position, he's not a starter. That's the determination of whether you should have traded him or not. Now, I know they tried to trade Brogdon, but it didn't work out, and so I don't know what happened all there. I don't know that Brogdon cleared through the health protocols. I believe he has an injury that might have held that up. So now we go back to Smart and we say, okay, he didn't fit there, but now the Celtics still have an issue on their point guard stuff, and then they went ahead and drafted Jordan Walsh. And so I don't get that at all. I'm going to talk about that as we go through. But let's go straight to the big fella, Victor Wembanyama. 7'5", came to the draft. He was emotional. It was great to watch the emotion of that young man with his family there. One of the things I was really, really impressed with also is that the draft, the families came together and really, really represented their young men very, very well there as well, I thought. Okay. I'm very, very excited when I see a mom talk about her son or her dad, or the young man's dad talk about the husband, talking about their relationship and how this whole thing came to play. That's very exciting to me. And to watch some families now have their financial futures change forever is also really exciting as well. So when you get to Victor Wembanyama, I was critical of the pick. I thought maybe Scoot Henderson was a better number 1. Zach Edey, had he come out, I thought was a pretty good look at number 1, but people would think I'm crazy for that. But Victor Wembanyama comes out. The Spurs had no choice. Okay, they had to draft Wembanyama, and anybody that would have went against the grain would have been putting their NBA career on the line. Okay, now that might take a tremendous amount of courage, okay, and strength, and I don't think that there's a lot of people around that want to get into that situation.
Was he a good fit for San Antonio though?
I think he is a good fit for I think he's a good fit for any NBA team. I mean, he is 7'5". He's certainly going to put fans in the seats.
Okay.
The problem I see, and this is what we're going to talk about, they drafted a young man in the 40s, Sidi Sissoko, with him, but does he have the complementary cast in San Antonio to be successful? And that's the real question. I think Popovich is going to stay on as coach in order to mentor him for a short period of time. But I don't know that they have the complementary players in San Antonio. Maybe they have something up their sleeve now. But I thought that they had a chance. They drafted Leonard Miller, and I thought, wow, they're drafting 2 7-foot-plus players. But then they traded Leonard Miller to the Warriors, which I thought might have been a mistake because Wembanyama is not going to play center for you. Wembanyama is going to be more in a forward position, where he's away from the basket, he can get around the basket. Leonard Miller is the center. Leonard Miller is going to be around the basket. Leonard Miller will dunk on your entire team. And so they're different players. I was a little surprised because I thought Leonard Miller at 33, again, shoplifting, certainly shoplifting. But we're going to give Victor Wembanyama his pick, and we're going to go through them right now. Everybody's been waiting. We're excited. Let's just hustle through and see what we can get. Victor Wembanyama to the Spurs, B+. They didn't have a choice, but it's a B+. He has the chance to change things for them and change the future of the game a little bit. But there's also a gentleman by the name of Bol Bol that they said this about several years ago, who's 7'5", Manute Bol's son, enjoying a great NBA career, but certainly not
game changer. Yeah.
And when you see media types, and now this is happening on the sports media types, because what you can see if you take a look at all of these small operational media operations, they all use the same language. They all use the same buzzwords.
No.
Yeah, and you see this all the time, and so, but also then now you're seeing it in sports too. And what were the buzzwords about this young man? Generational talent. He's a generational talent. Every person on television was regurgitating the same talking point. He's a generational talent.
I call that lazy journalism.
Yeah, and it makes me go against the tide. That immediately makes me go against the tide and say, you might want to look a little closer at this. Is this Chad Holmgren or is it Bol Bol? But neither one of those guys is a generational talent. Okay, Brandon Miller in the 2 spot to the Hornets. I gave it a D. Didn't like it. I was going to give it an F, but I stopped short of it because I think the young man has talent, and I think he comes out of a really good program at Alabama. Great coach over there, Nate Oates, but I'm going to give that one a D because, again, who was available for them to take instead? In the number 3 hole, Scoot Henderson. Now, this young man, if you said generational talent to me about Scoot Henderson, now I'm listening because this young man has some ability. Oh, my God, this guy can do some stuff on the basketball court that nobody else can do, with the exception of you're looking at a John Morant, a Michael Jordan. He has athletic ability. Anthony Edwards. Wow. He has athletic ability that's unparalleled. And so if he can work on his game, I think he shoots the ball fine. And he played in a game against Wembanyama that I watched good parts of that game. And he handled himself tremendously out on the floor against what he called a generational talent. I thought Scoot Henderson in that matchup absolutely outplayed Wembanyama. And so Scoot Henderson, that's going to get an A from me. Now we go into our favorite 80s band, the Thompson Twins. Amen is going to get $1 million from All-Star because they had a gamble between the two of them. Who would be drafted first would get $1 million. And so I hope Mama Thompson steps in and puts that one to rest, but that's the gamble that they had between the two of them. Amen says amen, and All-Star, well, I don't want to tell you what he's saying right now. But amen, taken by the Rockets. I'm going to give it a B+. This young man, again, I think has a better chance than Victor Wembanyama to be a good pro. He does some more things. He's fast. He can handle. He can do some really good things. Again, somebody's got to start feeding these young men.
I saw the package on them on one of the draft shows, and they're like, that's like Tiger Woods. The father raised them just like Tiger Woods.
They
you know what I mean?
They've been prepared for this. Yeah. And I was a little surprised, at the way this whole thing was handled. It was handled much better than I thought. It was going to be just for the sake of they're two young men that are just coming out, going through this process for the first time. And so if you look at other situations, like if you look at the 11 pick Jet Howard, his father's Juwan Howard, who played in the NBA, went and is now the head coach at Michigan. And so that family has a really, really good perspective from what to go through on draft day.
Yeah.
This family didn't have that type of perspective, but I thought they handled themselves A+. I'm going to give both of these gentlemen. The Pistons drafted Orsor in 5. Imagine being a family and watching your two sons go up and be drafted 4 and 5 in the NBA
That's
draft.
amazing.
That's a special moment.
Yeah.
That's a great moment for the NBA. And I think these two young men have very, very bright futures in the NBA. They're both really, really good. I'm going to give them both B+ grades because I want to see them get stronger. The NBA is such a physical game. I want to see them be a little stronger. I want to see them be a little bit more physical, but that can happen over time. Okay, here we go to the number 6 hole. Anthony Black taken by the Magic. Okay, I'm going to stop short of giving this an F, okay, but I gave it a D-, okay, which is about as close to an F as you can possibly get without saying the word F. I wanted to reserve the Fs because I don't really want to blast people, and I could be wrong. God knows I can be wrong. But on this one, Anthony Black, and the reason is because he took him 6th. Okay, I think Anthony Black could have a very good future in the NBA, but he's not the 6th-round pick in the NBA draft, in my opinion. Not even close.
Too high.
Not even close.
Okay.
Magic panicked on that, and I think they could have got a lot better player, and that's what we graded on. That's where the D grade comes from, because I think there's other guys here that we're going to name, and I think that they're better prospects. Okay, so then the Pacers draft Bilal Coulibaly, who played on Victor Wembanyama's France team. Now, this young man's 18 years old, I believe. He is really, really young, but he has the same ability as Wembanyama to be a player that could really, really take on a different look in the NBA if he's successful. Again, got to have a strength program, got to get bigger, got to get stronger, but the pick was traded then to the Wizards, and I thought that was a good pick for the Wizards. They had to give up a little bit of something in the past, but as we go through it, you'll see that. But Bilal Coulibaly, I gave it a B. I gave it a B because I thought it was a pretty good pick, and then the Wizards took it for Jarace Walker, who they picked next. I was not high on Jarace Walker. That's why I gave this grade a BD. I think Jarace Walker is a grade D, but I think Bilal Coulibaly is a grade B, and they were traded for those two players. What happens, sometimes the NBA will take a player that the other team wants and then trade them to the other team to get something else. There was another player involved in that trade as well that's going to go to the other team, but I think, if you wanted Coulibaly and you wanted to get him, Will Dawkins' his first draft as an NBA general manager, our local commerce product. I think that he did real well for himself, Will, and I think that that's an exciting pick for them. And if you're the Washington Wizards and you just lost Bradley Beal, you just lost Porzingis, and you just lost Chris Paul, well, roll the dice a little bit then.
Yeah.
Go take a shot. You're clearing out. You look like you want to build for the future. An 18-year-old superstar might help you get started with that. All right, so we're going to move to Jarace Walker. We gave the grade a D. I just didn't like the grade. I just don't like him in that position. I think he was on the University of Houston. I think Marcus Sasser is going to be a better pro than Jarace Walker, but time will tell that. Taylor Hendricks in the 9 spot by the Jazz. I gave Jarace Walker the grade of D, by the way.
Okay.
And so now we're into Taylor Hendricks of the Jazz. I like this young man. I saw him a little bit during the draft combine, and then I saw that there is some things that I think he needs to improve on. He's got size, he's got ability. I think he's got a good look for the future. He comes out of Central Florida. I think he could, turn into something pretty good in the NBA, but I wasn't really, really in love with the position where they drafted him, so I gave the pick a C+.
Okay.
In the 10 spot, Cason Wallace went to the Mavericks. Again, this pick was traded, and so I gave it a DB grade. I gave them a D for drafting Cason Wallace. Dallas drafting him, but now I give it a B because they traded it for Derek Lively, who I thought was a really, really good pick for them in that spot.
Okay.
And so the D grade gets assigned to Wallace as he gets traded to his new team, which is going to be something
City.
to determine. That's going to go down the line here. The Mavs and the Thunder are going to trade spots, and Lively goes up, Wallace goes down. I'm going to give Wallace a D, but I like Lively, so I'm giving him a B grade. Jet Howard is in the 11th spot there, so we'll slide him in between. Magic, he is the son of Juwan Howard. played at Michigan. I think if his name was Ron Howard and he wasn't Juwan Howard's son, I don't think he would have been in the first round. They drafted him at 11. It's my first F grade, Pete. I hate to do it. I think he's a great young man, but I hate to do it. It's my first F grade. And here's where the draft got a little funky for me.
Okay.
This is where I think they lost their shorts a little bit. And these are some of the picks that we're talking about. And if you look at some of the historical perspective of why there's so few second round picks that make it, why there's so few late first round picks that make it, you can see some of why, because some of these decisions are just absolutely off the charts crazy in my mind. Pay these general managers in the NBA an awful lot of money, but I don't think you have basketball people assisting in the decisions anymore. We're looking at salary cap. We're looking at all these different things, and we're saying, oh, they matter, and they do matter. But really what it comes down to is basketball. You're playing basketball.
Right.
So you better have some basketball people in there making some of these determinations for you. I think that this was lacking on this one, certainly. Jet Howard, maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong, but I gave it an F. And now we're going to get into it, too, because Grady Dick was drafted in the 13th spot by the Raptors. I absolutely thought his suit was ugly. I thought the red was a tip that the NBA is stiffing this thing. And I would tell people to stay away from gambling on this thing because I don't know that it's played straight. So when he got up in that suit, I was like, oh, my God, I don't like him as a pick. And now I'm going to give him a grade F as well. I think the young man from his team, who was later drafted by the Nets at 51, is a better prospect than him. And I'll talk about him in a couple of seconds. All right? So now we go to UConn. Again, this is where the draft went funky for me. Jordan Hawkins. The UConn Huskies are going to love this pick. The Pelicans took him in the draft. Everybody loves it but me. I gave him a D. I don't like it. I think he could have been a good pick later on, but taking Andre Jackson, leaving Adamo Sanogo out of the draft, and taking Hawkins based upon projection, based upon what you think he might turn into, I think that's a gamble. I think you're going to lose. And so now we go to Kobe Bufkin, also Michigan, drafted by the Hawks. The Hawks have done well with their draft picks, so I'm a little reluctant to really criticize them on this one, but I didn't see it. Not at 15. I gave him a D. So now we go to 16 was Keontae George from the Jazz. I really like this pick. I think people slept on him a little bit. I think he should have been a little higher. I gave that a grade B. I really like this young man as a lead guard going into the NBA.
Okay.
Jalen Hood-Schifino, taken by the Lakers, LeBron James's new teammate, Anthony Davis's new teammate. He's got a ton of talent. He's a big guard that can handle the ball, maybe play the point for you, depending upon what you want to do. But I'm going to offer the Lakers, Jeannie Buss front office, I'm going to offer them a little bit of advice, okay? Put the ball in LeBron James's hand. Stop playing him off the ball. His best days in the NBA are when he was the lead guard with the ball in his hands. He makes tremendous decisions. He's hard to stop and hard to score, which opens up all of your other guys. Put him on the point and live with the ramifications of it. He doesn't guard anybody at the 1, 2, 3, 4, any of the other places we put him. So him getting as a defensive liability at the 1 doesn't resonate with me. So I think they took Schifino in order to get a bigger point guard. You had your problem solved already. You should have given me a call, Jeannie, because I would have told you, move LeBron to the 1 and then grab the best shooter you can around that area. And we can talk about that again. But again, I got to give it a C- grade. I just don't know. He's a freshman. He played in the Big Ten. His numbers weren't that impressive. So they're projecting. These are projection draft picks. And I'd rather see them draft people like a Trace Jackson Davis who put up 21 and double-digit rebounds. You know, he was a walking double-double for 4 years, for 3 years in the NCAA. Okay, again, Jamie Jaquez, 18. I like this young man. I think he's a great, great second-round pick. But the Heat took him at 18. Sorry, fellas, that's a D. Okay, so we're moving pretty good here, Pete. I think we're, being pretty fair. But
yeah.
Let's see. Brandon Podziemski, okay? Also, a gentleman that drafted by the Warriors. So he's from Santa Clara area. and played there in college. Maybe they had a better chance to view this gentleman. Maybe they had a better chance to look at this gentleman and see some stuff that I didn't see, okay? But we're talking about Brandon Przemski, and I'm giving it an F. I don't think the young man's going to play in the NBA. Down to Cam Whitmore at 20, Rockets. Everybody thought this young man slid. I didn't think he slid. I just didn't think he was as good as everybody thought he was. Even at 20, I'm going to give Cam Whitmore a C+. 21 and 22 are the Nets, Brooklyn Nets, and we predicted this pick on In the Zone that they would take at 21 Noah Clowney from the Nets. Other people had him lower in the second round. I really like this pick for the Nets. He's from Brooklyn. He'll put some fannies in the seats for sure, but he's 6'10", and he can shoot the ball, and he can develop into a really good NBA player, I believe. I gave Mr. Clowney a grade of B. And Dariq Whitehead out of Duke, I think that was a little bit of a gamble, but not all that much. He was a freshman, but this young man has NBA talent, has an NBA-ready body. I gave that a B. Chris Murray to the Blazers. His brother Keegan Murray is already in the NBA. The University of Iowa is putting out some pretty good players lately. They have Garza, they have Murray, and now they're going to add another Murray. The coaching staff out there has done very, very well with their recruiting. This young man shoots the ball better than his brother does. I think he's got a pretty good upside because he's about 6'9". One of the things that was really interesting to me was when the NBA people, they do an actual height measurement of these young men. And so when you look in anybody's profile, in an NCAA profile, the coaching staff, the sports information staff usually adds 2 inches to make them look more intimidating. So Drew Timm was probably listed at 6'11" in Gonzaga's prospectus, in their team prospectus. When they measured him at the combine, he turned out to be 6'8". That's probably a good reason why he didn't get drafted. Well, we can talk that a little bit more. But again, Clowney, I like him. Dariq Whitehead, I like him. Murray, I like him. 24, this is where they regained a little bit. Those middle picks of their that went from 13 to 19, I don't know. But this young man at 24, Olivier Maxence Prosper, out of Marquette, drafted by the Kings, traded to the Mavs, get a B+ grade. That's maybe why the Mavs traded Lively, because they thought they could get Olivier Maxence Prosper down later on. He's about 6'9". He can dunk. He can handle. He can do some good stuff. I think that might be a little bit of shoplifting at 24 pick there for them.
So they might have had a deal in place already to get him further down the line.
It looks like they did. So that's where you have to kind of hold judgment on some of this stuff. You know, I love Lively, but they think that this young man's definitely more advanced than Lively offensively.
Okay.
This young man is not the same player Lively is defensively. So it's a toss-up. But again, Marcus Sasser at 25, I like this pick a lot. I think people slept on him. They were big Jarace Walker fans. The best player on Houston's basketball team this past year was Marcus Sasser, without a doubt. For the past number of years, he has led that team and done very, very well. That matters to us. The Grizzlies took him, traded him to the Pistons. I'm going to give it a grade B. This is a really intriguing pick at 26. Ben Sheppard, drafted by the Pacers. I heard somebody in the Pacers Combine said they had an individual workout with Mr. Sheppard, and it was off the charts. Then I went back, and all I've been doing for the last 2 weeks is just replaying the NBA Combine games over and over and over again. So I really wanted to hone in on Sheppard the other night. The Pacers might have got a steal there. He's a lower-level basketball player out of Belmont. He wasn't in the Big Ten. He wasn't in the ACC. But this young man's got a heavy motor on him, shoots the ball, but I tell you right now, he has a tiny, tiny little bit of a hitch in his shot. And I don't think it's going to matter tremendously, but that's where you can develop slumps sometimes when you don't have that consistency. So I gave Sasser a B. I'm giving Ben Sheppard a B+. Nick Smith Jr. out of the Hornets. You're going to find out I'm not in favor of some of these Arkansas guys. I gave it a D. Bryce Sensabaugh to the Jazz out of Ohio State. I like this pick. I like it at 28. I gave it a B. Julian Strawther to the Pacers and then to the Nuggets. One of the things I think that we could talk about here is one of the most intriguing and exciting pieces of the draft for me was that the Nuggets didn't sit pat. The Nuggets didn't say, okay, we just won the championship. We're good. We don't need to improve anything. The Nuggets didn't say that. They made several moves here to get into the draft, and they made some really good moves, I think. Julian Strawther at 29 for the Pacers, an elite shooter. We gave him a Noxzema Award on In the Zone. I gave it a B-. Kobe Brown to the Clippers has one of the most NBA-ready bodies in the in the whole combine, in the whole group. We'll see what he can do with his skill level, but he's really big, really strong. I gave it a B plus because you got him at 30, and people had him a lot higher than that. Okay, UConn player number 2, Andre Jackson. The more I go back and watch this young man, the more I look at him and say, it's got to be the right fit, because you got to want to have a passing forward. He's a Ben Simmons type player where he does so many great things out on the floor, but he's not a great shooter from the perimeter. Now, this I will say, he's not Ben Simmons shooting-wise, where he couldn't increase and do very, very well without some significant help. Ben Simmons needs some significant help on his jump shot. He needs some psychological help in order to break through some of the things that are blocking him. And so I don't see those same things in this situation with Andre Jackson. He just doesn't shoot the ball great, but he has really good size, handles the ball well. And if you got really good players on your team, like a LeBron James or somebody like that, you know, this young man's always looking to pass the ball, always looking to set another player up. He was really integral in UConn's run. So I like him at 36. I gave it a B. So
nobody from 31 through 40 kept the players they drafted. Everybody was traded.
They were moving them, and some of those picks I liked. I was surprised that they moved them. But again, when you look at, okay, they got this guy and they moved Lively, but then they brought in Olivier. Okay, I can see what they're doing. I don't know that it's going to work out because I think Lively's going to be pretty good.
Okay.
At 37, Hunter Tyson to the Thunder. I didn't even have this young man getting drafted. Watched him in the combine. They traded him to the Nuggets. And again, I do respect the Nuggets front office because they've done really, really good stuff. But I think they blew it here. I think they're going to get a D on that one. Jordan Walsh to the Kings originally, and then to the Celtics. Another young man out of the Arkansas program. One of 4 players, I believe, drafted from Arkansas in this draft. That's an unbelievable accomplishment for Coach Musselman, an unbelievable accomplishment for their program. The problem is I just don't like any of them as pros where they were drafted. Jordan Walsh to the Celtics is an absolute grade F. I don't know that that young man is going to make the Celtics roster. At 39, Mohamed Goye to the Hornets and then to the Hawks. I gave it a C. He's 6'11". He's bouncy. Washington State. He can do some things and potentially could turn into a really serviceable NBA big man. Next to Bang Bang Maxwell Lewis, taken by the Nuggets, but then thrown to the Lakers. At 40, I think this is one of the steals of the draft. He had a really good resume out of Pepperdine. I like him a lot. I gave it a B+. I think it was a really good pick at 40.
Coach, did you grade 31 through 35?
Yes, I did. Did I not give them to you?
Correct. You popped it up at 36. I was like,
oh my God.
Are we skipping over stuff?
Okay. Nope. Thank you, Pete. That's why you're here, man. Okay, so let's go back. All right, so let's go back to 31. James Nagy, Pistons, then traded to the Hornets. B+. I like Nagy.
Okay.
Big, strong, physical.
I know you've been talking a lot about
his
him.
brother's in the NBA.
Yep.
I like it. Jalen Pickett at 32. He went to the Pacers, then to the Nuggets. I don't like it. C+ grade.
Okay.
This is one of the Grand Theft Autos of the draft, I think, 33.
I saw you posting about it.
Leonard Miller. Spurs drafted him, but then they traded him to the Timberwolves. I gave it an A-.
Wow.
34, Colby Jones. I was high on him. In 34, not bad. But then I kind of watched him in the combine and didn't really love him as much as I used to. He went from the Hornets to the Kings. I gave it a C+.
Actually, it says traded to Boston. He's ended up in Boston.
Colby Jones?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yep. They must have done a second trade or something.
News. Julian Phillips went from the Celtics to the Bulls. I gave him a B-.
Okay.
Okay, so now I got to recapture where I was. So we were at Bang Bang Maxwell Lewis with the Nuggets.
Yep.
Okay, so no harm, no foul there.
There you go.
All right, Bang Bang, I gave a B+. The Lakers, I like the way he fits into what they do. I just don't know where he's going to fit in because you have LeBron James. You don't need a lot of wing players. I thought they would have, again, go up top and maybe get somebody bigger, you know, but that Leonard Miller was taken, you know, possibly. Maybe they wanted to go a different way. I don't know. Amari Bailey at 41. The jury's out on this young man, drafted out of UCLA, Hornets, left-handed. I just don't know. I don't think it was a great pick. C+. 42, Tristan Vukcevic. Wizards drafted him. Go ahead, Will Dawkins. Listen to the In the Zone. We loved Vucevic. We said take him. And a B+ grade goes out to this for sure. I want to see a little bit more of him, but I really like his shooting ability. He's strong. And the young man Jokic from the Nuggets was also a 42 pick. So if you're looking for a little bit of foreign influence at 42 that might turn into something beautiful, I think you might have found it there. And I like what the Wizards are doing. They're committing to this young thing, and they're going to burn it, and they're going to go with it. All right. So now we got 43, Rayan Rupert to the Blazers. Let's give that a C. I'm not in love with it. I don't hate it. New Zealand, I don't know what happens in New Zealand. 44, Sidi Sissoko from the Spurs, B+ with Victor Wembanyama. This guy is a wing player. He shoots it pretty good, but he's a really good athlete, too. I think that they might have got a little bit of shoplifting done there with that pick. I liked it. Greg Jackson at 45, Grand Theft Auto here. Many people had Mr. Jackson in the top 15. For him to have slipped with Cam Whitmore as far as they did, I don't know that anybody slipped as much as Gregory Jackson Jr. did. I don't understand why. The Grizzlies took him at 45. I like it. I gave it a B+. Seth Lundy at 46 to the Hawks. I really, really think this young man is an elite shooter of the basketball, and that matters. When you have a great dynamic guard like Trae Young, and then you have Clint Capella on the inside as well, you're going to need somebody to keep some people off of that. Lundy is an elite shooter. He's really, really tall. I get the defensive question about him, but, you know, I guess you have to measure that as well, too. You know, what does bad defender mean? You know, can't guard a bank with a gun and a badge? Or he's a conscientious objector where he doesn't even try. You know, those are different things that the coaching staff has to look at. I don't think he's a conscientious objector as much as he's just not very skilled at it. And it would have
that
to
could be
improve.
coached up.
But that's where you can play zone in college, and it makes a big difference. But it can be coached up a little bit. But his shooting ability is off the charts. I have him maybe. Grady Dick is a great shooter. I'm not going to question that. But I think this young man is just as good a shooter and brings a little bit more to the table.
Okay.
So we're going to go to Mojave, 47. Mojave King was taken to the Lakers, sent to the Pacers, C-. I think it's an okay pick. Nothing special. Could prove me wrong. He's very athletic, really, really good, but I think he's a little bit undersized. He's a little bit like Sonoga, where he's undersized, and I probably would have taken Sonoga than him in that position right there. 48, Jordan Miller from the University of Miami. Let's give a shout-out to the A-10. Dave Paulson, the new coach at Holy Cross, coached him at George Mason. He spent 1 year at Miami and did very, very well there. I love this pick. I think it's a good pick. I think I gave it a pretty good grade. I gave it a C+ grade. I like the pick, but taking this young man over Isaiah Wong, it doesn't make any sense to me. It really doesn't. Maybe they needed something different. I don't know. We can look at that later. 49, Amani Bates, the Cavaliers' only pick. I give it a B-. This young man has some upside. This young man has a tremendous ability. Again, strength factor is going to be a consideration. I would say with 20% of this first round and 25% of the second round, strength factor is a huge consideration. Got to get some of these guys in the weight room.
Yeah.
Number 50, Keontae Johnson to the Thunder. This is a young man that had a heart episode at the University of Florida. Had a lot of trouble getting doctors to clear him and programs to accept him. He found a home at K-State, went on a tremendous run this year. I'm going to give this a great grade. I'm not in love with him as an NBA player, I got to be honest, but I am really, really an admirer of his, and I'm praying that it goes well. I gave it a B because I'd like to see him get a chance. Number 51, Jalen Wilson at the Nets, shoplifting. Let's talk about it, Nets. Okay, you got a great pick here. I really like Dariq Whitehead. I really like Noah Clowney. I think this was a follow-up. I'm going to go on it and say in the zone projection is that Jalen Wilson will be a better pro prospect than Grady Dick. There we go. We said it. 52, I would have taken Terquavian Smith over Grady Dick, but he was undrafted.
Yeah.
52, Toumani Camara. How this young man was taken over Deron Holmes, I really don't understand. Deron Holmes went undrafted. I don't understand that. The Suns took him. He's got some upside. He's A-10, so I'm going to give him a little bit of love. C+ grade, though. 53, Jalen Clark to the T-Wolves. I gave it a C. Again, he's a good defender. I just don't think the NBA is built on defense anymore. They talk about, oh, this guy's a great lockdown defender. Who plays defense in the NBA anymore?
Right.
What are you lockdown defender? What are you talking about? Name him. Marcus Smart, not a lockdown defender. He's a good player. But, I mean, to talk about a guy who can only play defense, they talk about the Beverly young man. He's not anywhere near a great defender. Now, if you want to talk about Dennis Rodman in the past, now that guy was glue.
Yep.
You know, but right now in the NBA, it's not even – fostered. It's not even being mentored. It's not even.
It's not worth it because
it's not even being encouraged.
Right? Yeah, they're
It's
not
actually
calling
being
anything anyways.
It's actually being discouraged because it takes away from the entertainment value of the NBA.
Yep.
There you go. We said it. You have illegal defense. You have hand check rules. Why don't you just come out and say we don't want you playing defense? It'd be easier. Just come out and say no defense in the NBA. We're just an offensive juggernaut. People would probably still watch it and enjoy it. But I think right now to say this guy's a defensive lockdown guy, I mean, come on. Jalen Slauson, I like the pick. He's from Furman, lower level. Give him a shot. I just don't know that he's going to make it in the NBA. The Kings took him. I gave it a C-. 55, Grand Theft Auto. Isaiah Wong. The Pacers get an A for this grade. This young man is dominant in one of the best basketball leagues in the country. He led his team 2 years straight to the Elite Eight. He's an off guard with size, with athleticism. He can move to the point and easily run your team at a 6'4" with great shooting ability to create off the dribble, and his time at Miami with Coach Jim Larinaga has given him a really good perspective on ball screen reading. He reads ball screens better. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say this to Isaiah, though. One thing that you're going to have to improve upon, I've seen it in some of your basketball games, and I've seen it in some of your time at the Combine, your decision-making needs to improve a little bit. You've got to make better decisions in the NBA, otherwise you're going to get smothered and lost amongst all those trees. Just a little shout out to my guy Wong. I think it's one of the best of the draft. 56, Tariq Biberovic. The Grizzlies took him at D. I give it a grade D because I don't even know who he is. Never heard of him. And I'm sure they did their homework and they think this could be a great pick for them. Okay, let the future tell it. 57, Grand Theft Auto. Will Dawkins, Commerce High School. His draft was an A. One of the reasons it was an A is because he took Trace Jackson Davis. But then he traded him to the Warriors. I don't get it, Will. I think this young man's going to be a really good pro for a really good long time. His numbers at Indiana were off the charts. I think that matters. And I think that people are looking at him and being very critical of a few things he doesn't do well and then ignoring all of the really good things that he does do well. I think he's going to be a really good player. At 57, the Warriors, I think they're a little bit concerned possibly about what happens with Draymond Green, who turned down a guaranteed contract from them. But when you look at we'll talk about that in a second. Let's just finish here. But Chris Livingston goes to the Bucks. I give it a D. I thought it was a throwaway pick. When you talk about some of the players that didn't get drafted, I see Chris Livingston. He has an upside. He's got some good potential, but there were other players here that I think are going to be better pros that you could have drafted and taken, and that would have been a better situation there. That's all I'm going to say on that right now. I think we did pretty well with that. Those are the individuals. Let's go to the teams. All right, so now we're flying through this. The Hawks, I gave them a C. They got Kobe Bufkin, Muhammad Goye, and Seth Lundy. I gave it a C, a 2.0, because what I did was I took every grade that I gave these guys on the individual, assigned it to them on a team, and I broke it down like a college GPA. They got a 2.0. I think Lundy's a deep threat, and I think Goye could turn into a great player. I think Bufkin at 15 was a miss. Celtics at number 2, Jordan Walsh at 38. I gave it an F. Yeah, I don't think he makes the Celtics roster. Number 3, the Nets, I gave him an A-. Noah Clowney, Dariq Whitehead, and Jalen Wilson. They did their homework. Jalen Wilson's going to be a very good pro, in my opinion. He's got size. He can shoot the ball. For him to be taken at 51, Isaiah Wong at 55, you guys aren't watching college basketball, I can tell you that. Clowney, I don't know how well he mixes with Claxton, the young man they have playing in that role right now, but I have a 3.16 GPA, and Wilson is a steal. Hornets at 4, I gave him a C. Brandon Miller at number 2, Nick Smith at 27, James Nagy at 31, and Amari Bailey at 41. Miller at the number 2, I think that could possibly turn into a Sam Bowie situation. Nagy at 31, I like it though. Chicago Bulls. Okay, Julian Phillips, he's an enigmatic player. I'm just not sure that he's going to be, a great pro. They took him at 35. He's got a really good upside, I think, with his size and strength abilities, but I just didn't love him as a full player. Cavaliers took Amani Bates, again, B-, enigmatic player. They took him at 49, though, and I like him at 49. Donovan Mitchell's the star there. Everybody's got to fit around that. Let's see how that works. The Mavericks, I gave them a B+. Derek Lively and Olivier Maxence Prosper are 2 bigs that they pick up. I like them both, 3.5 GPA. They're both lively bodies, and I think they can help. Taking Lively at 12 and trading him, and getting traded, and then Prosper at 24. I love it. Nuggets get a C. Julian Strother, Jalen Pickett, and Hunter Tyson. 27, 32, and 37. Now, the other thing, too, is what are you going to do at 32, 27, 32, and 37? You're not going to get great players, but I think they could have done better here. Pickett and Tyson, I think, are not going to be NBA players. Julian Strother, I like him a lot, but that was a grade C overall. The Pistons got a B. We got Ausar Thompson and Marcus Sasser. I like them both. They're two new additions. I think they'll both be good roster additions, and I think that's a huge upgrade for the Pistons. Going to turn them into a better player. They have Cade Cunningham. They have some good pieces there. I think they can do some stuff. They're a long way from Tipperary, though, as my grandmother used to say. 10, the Warriors. Give them a C. Brandon Podziemski, I don't get it, but they did pick up Trace Jackson Davis, who I did get. I think they're European style. Podziemski might be able to fit in a little bit there, but I don't think he's a pro. I think Trace Jackson Davis is a better player by far. Rockets at 11, I gave them a B. I gave the Warriors a C. The Rockets, I gave a B. Amen Thompson and Cam Whitmore. I like Amen Thompson a lot. Not a huge Cam Whitmore fan. Pacers, I gave them a B-. They got Jarace Walker. They picked up Ben Shepherd, Mojave King, and Isaiah Wong. I love Shepherd. I love Wong. Mojave could surprise. So could Jarace Walker. So I think they did well there. I gave them a B- overall. I think that Wong, again, is a steal. Mojave King could turn out to be a really good player at 47, too. Could prove me wrong there. 13, the Clippers, they're going to get a B. Kobe Brown and Jordan Miller, two good players. Miller really can score the ball. So can Brown. I think they might have done themselves pretty well there. They got to figure out what's going on with Kawhi Leonard and some of the older players that they have there and what direction that team's going to go in. Lakers, a B-. Jalen Hood-Schifino, not in love with that pick there, but then they followed it up with Maxwell Lewis. I think those two guys could probably make the team and be pretty good. Lewis at 40 is possibly one of the best picks in the whole draft. 15, the Grizzlies get a B-. G.G. Jackson and Tariq Biberovic. I like G.G. Jackson at 45. I don't know enough about Biberovic. I had Jackson rated way, way higher than that in the pre-draft, so to get him at 45, I'm giving the Grizzlies a B-. The Heat, only one pick. They took Jamie Jaquez. I think one of the things they should have learned from their time, albeit a great season, is your role players got exposed defensively. And one of the things that you might want to look at when you're orchestrating this roster and putting this roster together is you might want to lay off the role players and start to get some guys that are dogs that can play in the NBA and that are NBA-proven guys. Jamie Jaquez at 18, I think, is a really, really mishit, and I think you did it way too soon. Okay, so the Bucks at 17. Who's going to fit along Antetokounmpo? I like Andre Jackson there. Chris Livingston, I just don't get it. I really don't. I'm going to give them an overall grade of a C there. I just don't get the Livingston thing. But again, you got to give Kentucky players their respect and their due. Jamal Murray, they have great players in the NBA right now, and Kyle Perry's had at least a solid #1 pick in every single year that's been around. So I'm reluctant to criticize them, but I just didn't see enough out of that young man in order to validate that pick.
Yep.
Timberwolves at 18, Leonard Miller and Jalen Clark, 33 and 53. Leonard Miller, I really like it. That's Grand Theft Auto, in my opinion. Jalen Clark could be okay as a pro. I don't think he's going to let anybody's world on fire, but I think he might be able to be a guy that's on your roster. I don't think he's a great player by any stretch. 19 with the Pelicans. They get a D for Jordan Hawkins only. I think it was way too soon, and I think they bit into some of the hype there on this young man. I think Sonoga, being undrafted, I think, some of these other guys that were on their team are just as good of players as him. I just didn't get it. The Thunder, I gave them a C. The Pelicans, I gave a D on the Jordan Hawkins one. Thunder, I gave a C. Kason Wallace, not a big fan. But again, let's give Kentucky their due, and let's see what happens. Keontae Johnson, I think that's more wishful thinking than anything. I did give him an overall grade of a C, though. Magic, Anthony Black and Jet Howard. I gave it a D-. They were 6 and 11. I should have given it an F, but my grades on them didn't qualify that, so I didn't go there. Howard, is Juwan, that connection there, I think, has really gotten people worked up in a different way, and I think Black at number 6 is going to turn out to be one of the all-time worst picks of all time.
Wow.
22, the Suns, Toumani Camara. He gets a C+ from me. I know why they drafted him. I get it, but I'm not thinking this man's going to make the Suns roster at 52. I think they could have got somebody that would make their roster at 52. But when you have Kevin Durant and Booker and Beal, where does Kumara fit in? I don't get it. Okay, Blazers B. Scoot Henderson, Chris Murray, and Rayon Rupert. I don't have enough information on Rupert. This could have easily been an A- because I think Scoot Henderson is the generational player of this draft. I think Chris Murray is going to be a solid pro for a number of years, and Rupert, I don't know. So we'll just give it a look, but I think that grade could easily go up. The Blazers did very well for themselves. Let me give the Blazers a piece of advice here while we're at it. Okay, keep Damian Lillard and keep Scoot Henderson. You'll have one of the most athletic backcourts in the entire history of the NBA. If it doesn't work, you can trade one of them, but give it a shot right away. Put Lillard and put Henderson in the backcourt together, and you got a stick of dynamite. Okay, I don't know what you got for the rest of your players, but those two guys are going to be able to control the ball, score the ball, and keep other teams at bay. I'd go with it. 24 to the Kings, a C, Colby Jones and Jalen Slauson. Jones, I think, could be a decent pro. Slauson, I don't know about making the roster. The Spurs, Wembanyama and Sissoko, I gave them a solid B+ here. Wembanyama, obviously, if he turns out to be as good as everybody says, let's say that he might. Okay, there's your situation there. Sissoko, 44. I think that's a good pick. The Raptors, 26, Grady Dick. At 13, I gave it an F. The Jazz with a B with Taylor Hendricks and Keontae George. I think that's a pretty good look overall. I'm moving really quick here because I think we're going to get caught up in the end of the show. So I think that might be it.
Got about 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay, the last one is the Wizards. Okay, I give it a grade B. Koulibaly and Vucevic, had they held on to Trace Jackson Davis, I would have given him a strong B+, maybe an A-. I think overall, the Wizards did very well, but these young men are going into an absolute roster that is absolutely bereft of talent. And so, yeah, Koulibaly is 18 years old. You're going to throw him to the Wolves in the NBA? I don't know. Does he stay in France for a few more years and try and get stronger like they have with the hockey players sometimes? You know, they'll get drafted and then they'll go in and they'll stay in an affiliate league for a little bit of a while. Just as an FYI, you know, I think Will Dawkins did really well in his first draft. He comes out of the Sam Presti tree. I think that's pretty good. If you look at some of the picks, we'll pick that up later next week. We'll look at some of the picks and the impact on their current roster because I thought we could get to all of it today, but boy, we went through that and flew right out of time.
Yeah.
And so next week we'll pick up with who is on the current roster and how does the pick impact what they're doing. By then, there'll be some more trades and some other action going on. And then we'll see what happens with some of the roster adjustments that are made. But I wanted to also talk about some of the salaries that are being thrown around there. Jaylen Brown at $250 million by the Celtics for 5 years. That's $50 million a year.
And they have a salary cap.
They have a salary cap, but again, the salary cap has more trip doors than you can possibly shake a stick at. Okay. They can sign their own player for what they call a supermax deal, and that doesn't impact the cap. You have to be almost a lawyer, almost a genius to figure out the NBA salary cap. I think that's why they wrote it that way. But I think that when you're looking at being able to sign your own players, I'm going to say this now, and I'm going to get a lot of criticism for it, but Jaylen Brown is not worth $250 million.
Was Marcus Smart worth it?
$250 million? No way. Marcus Smart wasn't eligible for that kind of deal. Draymond Green is turning down a tremendous deal from the Warriors to go test the waters as a free agent. I think that might be a little something interesting to watch because Draymond might find out that life at home was a whole lot better than it is out on the road there trying to get that same kind of money from another team who now has that salary cap implication.
Right.
Okay, so we're done. Rocked and rolled for an hour. I think we got to go to 2 hours, Pete. We got to jam this thing out to 2 hours because we just get into the hour, and I'm like feeling like, oh my God, we can keep rolling here for days. But again, I want to thank everybody for being with us in the zone. We love all of our people that communicate with us. We will get to some guests later on during the summer, and I want to say thank you to Pete for being the absolute best partner anybody could have in the business. Thank you to Community Channel 15, and we'll see you next week.